this lecture, we will go over Articles 11 and 12 of the EU AI Act. These cover technical documentation and record keeping. In the record keeping slide, we will see two phrases that I believe require a little bit more context. Those are product presenting a risk and substantial modification. We will conclude with a note on biometric system record keeping. So technical documentation, I believe this is pretty straightforward. The goal of this requirement is for AI operators to demonstrate compliance with Section 2, specifically Annex 4. I don't think you need to remember the Section 2, Annex 4 part. Altogether, this documentation should provide a general description of the system, including the system architecture, training methodologies, and cybersecurity controls, the system elements and development, how the system is monitored, how it functions, and how it's controlled, performance metrics, risk management methodology, and relevant changes throughout the life cycle. Record keeping, I believe, is also pretty straightforward. The system must automatically log or record events throughout the life cycle. And two events that should be automatically flagged include when the product is presenting a risk or when the product requires a substantial modification. And because those two terms on their own are a little bit vague, I want to just define what those mean in the next two slides. The term product presenting a risk originates from the Market Surveillance Regulation. The definition of risk is aligned with what we described a couple lectures ago. This is the potential to negatively impact individuals, the environment, public security, or other public interests. So with regards to record keeping, if the system is going to present this type of risk, then that needs to be flagged. The other term, substantial modification, this originates from the EU AI Act itself, specifically Article 323. Remember that Article 3 of the EU AI Act is a long list of definitions, so that's a good glossary to reference if you need to. And a substantial modification is understood as a post-market change unforeseen in the conformity assessment. And this change affects compliance with the Act or the system's intended purpose. Finally, for biometric system record-keeping purposes, the following should be documented: a timestamp for each use of the system, a reference database against which input data is checked, a way for input data to be searched, and the identification of the natural person involved in verifying results. In this lecture, we went over Articles 11 and 12 of the EU AI Act. Article 11 concerns technical documentation, and this documentation should provide a general description of the system elements and development, how the system is monitored, how it functions and is controlled, the system's performance metrics, risk management methodology, and relevant changes throughout the life cycle. Concerning record keeping, the system should automatically log or record events throughout the life cycle. And two issues or events that must be flagged include the product presenting a risk and the requirement for substantial modifications. Remember that a product presenting a risk is the potential to negatively impact individuals, the environment, public security, or other public interests. And a substantial modification is a post-market change unforeseen in the conformity assessment, and the change affects compliance with the Act or the system's intended purpose. Finally, for biometric system record keeping, the system should keep a timestamp for each use. There should be a reference database against which input data is checked. There should also be a record for the input data against which the search is matched. And finally, identification of the natural person involved in verifying results.